Welcome to MATIN Talks. First ever MSA-PSG contemporary short speech format competition.
Our first MATIN speaker for the night used the power of manga.
How many of you have heard this before?
At the moment, I really thought that I was
MATIN Talks Sharing the Light. 46th Annual MSA-PSG Conference, 2016.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All right, I have a confession. Around this time last year, I joined a protest against AIPAC, which is the American-Israeli lobby group, and I wore an anonymous mask spray painted with the Palestinian flag and joined up with a group of anonymous sympathizers who were also wearing masks, who I'd never met before, and spray painted the words F AIPAC on the concrete in front of the convention. Play. Now, when I was doing this, I really thought I was embracing the grungy, nitty-gritty side of activism. That I was really sticking it to the man, like I learned to when I was watching School of Rock as a kid. But I wasn't, was I? Activism didn't require me to do that. I wasn't in any way using that step in my life to help people, which is really what activism should be doing. And I turned around to myself and I thought, what should activism be? And so I had to turn to Islam, because Islam gives us the framework for every single act in our life. And in one of my readings, from the book Tarh Kulliya Andishe Islami, which is a book translated as the holistic outline for Islamic ideology in the Quran. This book is written by Sayyid Ali Hosseini Khamenei, the current leader of the Islamic Revolution. And the interesting thing about this book is that it is a transcript of a lecture series that he gave pre-Iranian Revolution. Even more interesting than that, this lecture series was the lecture series that led him to be arrested by Savak and tortured. So I'm sure we can find a gem in there too. The quote I'm going to use is about infaq. And infaq, to translate, is self-sacrifice and charity, hand in hand. Therefore, infaq is that which fills a gap, a need, fulfilling a need. If a people in society require something like air and water, anything other than that which is given to them is a waste of resource. In Farsi, he quite literally said haram kardan, which implies that that resource was used in a haram way, in a forbidden way, in the halal and haram black and white. To really drive this point home so that we can relate it to our own lives, we all know that we have the friendly uncle in our local mosque who every Ramadan or every Muharram decides to sponsor the dinner during this busiest night, Laylatul Qadr or Ashura. And he says, I'm going to give dinner to the entire community purely to my own expense. Well, wow. Well, at that moment we think, wow, he's so generous, he's so charitable. He really is doing something for the good of the community. But is he? Because when people pull up to your mosque in Beamers, Benz, and Bentleys, no one really needs food. There is no gap or need there for food. It's some sort of self-righteous or self-serving practice. But, of course, I'm not saying that it's bad, but that's in no way infaq. That's in no way self-sacrifice or charity. So, when my friends ask me, how can we fill gaps in society? Because I have been involved in many activist groups on campus. I'm the vice president for my campus Students for Justice in Palestine, and we've planned a lot of protests and events. And seeing as I was the active one in my group, they asked me to devise a plan. And this is what I came up with in my short amount of time. The first step is knowledge is power. As one of my favorite political hip-hop artists, Akala, likes to say. why do we find knowledge important is very clear. Because the final religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the everlasting religion, had one miracle, other than the Aimma. It is the Quran. And the Quran is a book. And what do books represent? Knowledge. So the first way we can get involved in our communities and actually fill needs that people have is through knowing about them. If we don't know about something, we cannot help. And so we have to read. Read, read, read. Because when a people are enslaved, the first thing they do is stop them reading. Because it is well known that an intelligent people will take their freedom. That's a quote from that same political hip-hop artist. And here are a few books that I wrote down for my friends to take a look at. If you would like, you can also ask me about more. And so for the first step, you have to understand the issues at your local, your state, your country, and global levels. You have to understand what people are going through. The second step is joining those communities who are already helping people. And using the knowledge that you gained in step one and the knowledge that you have of Islam, because we already are equipped as Muslims with a superior moral ideology. Now, of course, you can't go into a community saying that because the general populace of the United States has been victim to the logical fallacy of hasty generalization. But, of course, we know for ourselves that we can help people because we have been taught to. You can join communities like the community at Standing Rock in North Dakota that one of our brothers yesterday very passionately spoke about. You can join an art exhibit and express your love for helping the oppressed through art. And then after that, you have to find a momentum to keep you going. Because a one-time deal is not going to help. And why is it that all of us know about the problems in our societies? For example, we all know that in every single one of the cities that we live in, there are homeless people. Well, why are we not helping them? Why am I not helping them? I know for a fact there are people that are hungry. Should not that trigger some sort of empathy in me to at least maybe once a year, once a month, once in a lifetime go and feed people? But I don't. Why is that? Well, there's only one reason that as human beings we're really motivated, and that's dopamine, right? And dopamine is what really pushes us to keep going. So for me, when I lied earlier when I said the step of going to that protest was completely useless because the protest served to provide me dopamine, provided me encouragement that what I'm doing is good. I joined a community of people who were expressing themselves loudly in public. And so I use protests kind of like how someone should use candy for their son or daughter. Well, if you find out that your son really loves M&Ms or Twizzlers, well, then you'll leverage that candy and be like, if you go pray your 5 prayers today, I'll give you a pack of Twizzlers. Or if you go be nice to your mom for a whole day and do chores for her, I'll give you a pack of M&Ms. And so we have to use whatever we find a dopamine rush to help us continue fighting for good. And for me, I like protests. For you, you might like going to museums and finding inspiration there in the art and culture that you find so rich in museums. Or you might even like to go listen, to spoken word. Neil Hilburn is a great inspiration. He speaks very passionately about his problems in his life. And so there's always one drug that you can kind of find to get yourself going when it comes to helping people. And before I go on to the last step, I want to take a second to mention the risks that are involved in these first 3 steps that we have to self-reflect on. In the first step, when we're gaining knowledge, we have to be very wary of what we're intaking, because we can always be misinformed, disinformed, and biased. And so you don't want to go to Fox News. Please, do not do that. Not a good idea. In the second step, you can use your knowledge and be arrogant about it. And instead of helping people to come join you or help yourself assimilate into a community that you're trying to join yourself, you can actually put distance between yourselves. And rather than stepping forward, you can be detrimental. And in the third step, kind of like candy or other dopamine releasing substances like cocaine. You can become a protest junkie, or you can become an art junkie, and you can forget why you're going there. And so we always have to self-reflect and have insight, which is the main reason for action. You have to have insight. Without insight, you don't have a purpose. And the reason that action is the final and most important step is because as a Muslim, I've been Muslim for the past 20 years of my life, which is my whole life, I can safely say that I know this one thing about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not, prima facie, I can say this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want laissez-faire Muslims. If you are a laissez-faire Muslim, I'm sorry, but you have to omit the Muslim. Laissez-faire, meaning hands-off, is not a method of being Muslim. You cannot step away from a problem. It is like, absolutely, I believe this with 100% of my heart, that it is haram for us to turn the eye away from people's problems. That is not what any one of our prophets or imams did. And so there are two ways that you can help. One is in a realistic hands-on methodology, and I like to use an example of the man and the fish. And the man and the fish is, if you give a man a fish, he's not hungry for a day, and if you teach him to fish, he's not hungry for his entire life. But contrary to what you think, those are both hands-on, realistic solutions. Because one of them, you're covering the problem by giving them the fish and fixing it immediately. The second one, you're building a pillar upon which you can build a house. But the second way that we can help, and an example of the hands-on is, for example, helping in a soup kitchen. The second way that we can help is the idealistic way, which is changing the minds of people, like the people I'm showing on the board. And that is, instead of fixing up the house, or fixing even the pillars of the house, but understanding the soil and the foundation upon which the house is built on. Because sometimes the house is built on a hill, where it's slanted and unequal. And so understanding the socioeconomic and political structures that help oppress people so that they don't know how to fish when they need to is another method. And so I want to end with the quote that's on my shirt by Desmond Tutu, one of the founders that helped Nelson Mandela free somewhat the African people of South Africa, that if you are neutral in situations of injustice, then you have chosen the side of the oppressor. So please, find your goal, find your drug, don't spray paint things because that's illegal and you can get arrested, and then get going and get it done. Thank you.